So, look, 100 Years of Solitude. Let's wrap up. I liked the show, the book. It is seven generations, but the seventh one is an asterisk. Okay, so we look at 6 generations. It's set in a fictional town called Macondo. It is written in the 60s, 67 I think it came out. Yes, 1970 in English. It is magic realism, which I don't love, but that's the style, so that's fine. There you go. I guess it does, with it being 7 generations, I guess it does take place over 100 years. The Solitude is more, we look at the people and their own mental state and everything else, but for me the Solitude is more, you've built this little village on your own in the middle of nowhere for your family. That's almost the Solitude. Like, your whole family is going to live for 7 generations in this fake village that you've built, basically, in Colombia. And yes, they build Macondo. It is a city of mirrors that reflect the kind of scenery around, and then they're just inside. People do come and visit. There's a gang of gypsies that come, I think, annually to visit. Melquiades is the gypsy leader. I will say this book gets very confusing because of the character names. It's very realistic because, of course, you're naming after relatives. But it makes it a hard read because all the characters have similar names and you can't figure out which generation is which. So Jose Arcadio Buendia is the original guy. But then it's like the different generations. It's like, there's another Arcadio. Now there's like Oriolano and all these different characters. One of the guys has 7 sons to 7 different women and names them all after himself. So we end up with... I'm gonna actually... I've loaded the Wikipedia for the express purpose of loading the character tree here, basically.
Now, also, do they have like 10 names?
Luckily, they tend not to in this.
Okay.
They tend to only have 2 or 3 names, so that's easy enough to deal with. We have Colonel Aureliano Buendia. He's the one that goes off and leaves the village and goes off and fights the war and eventually comes back. Sorry, not 7. 17 sons to different women, all called Aureliano. And then they all get a suffix. Aureliano the sad, Aureliano the lover. Like, they all have a different suffix.
You see, I was just thinking it was going to be like the 7 dwarves or something, like...
Well... Luckily, we don't have to deal with all 17 of them, because I think only 4 or 5 of them actually come to live in the town in the end, and then some of them die, and I think the lover's the one who stays alive. The rest get murdered. So there's murder and things like that happening in the book. There is one generation where there is a sad case of child sexual abuse by one of the female relatives. So that's rough. Then the kid who was abused thinks, does that mean I'm supposed to marry my aunt now because we did that stuff? Oh. And then they're like, no, it's like contrary to the laws of nature to marry your aunt. And he's like, all right, okay. So it's dealing with some dark themes as well. There's murders, there's sexual abuse. That's quite common in Latin American literature, to be honest. There's always rapey scenes in almost any Latin American book I've read. There's one character who I like called Remedios La Bella, or La Bella. So she's the beautiful, and they talk a lot about how beautiful she is. But they also say that she's not the brightest. I think she's almost excessively not bright. But she goes entirely on her beauty. But I mean, I'm just looking here. We've also got next generation has Arcadio again. It's like, well, we already looked at Arcadio. Arcadio is the illegitimate son of Jose Arcadio. Then Aureliano Jose is the son of Aureliano Buendia, but that's not the one with the 17 sons. And it's like, there's 17 other Aurelianos. Now there's another Remedios. Now there's Jose Arcadio Segundo. Now there's Aureliano Segundo. And at some point, I'm getting lost. It's like, oh no, 5th generation. There's another Jose Arcadio. There's another Remedios. It gets very difficult to figure out what's going on, because all the generations have similar or the same names. Aureliano II, but he's like the 20th that we've met. So I didn't love that. I find it a bit tricky to keep a grip with what's happening.
I feel like George R.R. Martin does the exact same thing. Like, I mean, anyone who's played like Elden Ring, it's just like, right, so we have all these people whose names either begin with G or M, and that's it. There's no other types of names like that. Good luck keeping track.
Yeah, to be honest, that's tough. It happens a lot as well. I do recommend you read Vanity Fair, but it happens. Yeah, but it happens a lot in that book. It's like, oh, all these names are similar, and then you got married, so they would follow the tradition. So the oldest sister is, let's say that she's called Jane Smith. Okay, so the oldest sister gets Miss Smith, and the younger sister gets Miss whatever her name is. But then when the older sister gets married, she becomes Mrs. something, and then the younger sister is promoted to Miss Smith. So it's like, well, why they're all changing their name? Every time one person gets married, like 3 people have changed their title. It's really, really difficult. And there's a lot of marriages and divorces and everything. It's a nightmare to follow. But it is a fantastic book because it is Thackeray.
Sure.
So, look, we see war in this book. We see massacres. We see murders. By the end, Makondo's kind of a bit of a wreck. The gypsies are kind of cool because they come in and they bring stories from the outside world and kind of keep the place thriving, and people come in and bringing them things that they can buy, bits of technology and stuff like that. So they have tales to the outside world. Okay, the magic realism really comes in with the last generation. So I'm going to go ahead and spoil the ending here, because that's the biggest point of magic realism, is the 7th generation, and the bloodline dies because a baby is born. Then the baby has the tail of a pig. It is born of incest. The mother dies in childbirth. She's the second Ursula to appear. The father's like, well, my wife's dead. I don't know about this baby. I'm just going to leave it lying there, I guess. The baby gets devoured by ants. The baby is dead. Okay. Leaving the man as the end of the bloodline, because his babies and his wife are dead. And the town is now abandoned.
So, I can enjoy those types of bits to a story, but it seems like this just comes completely out of nowhere. It just doesn't seem to connect to the other generations, or is there that type of stuff? I
mean, there is a little bit of magic realism throughout it, but it seems to come really out of nowhere at the end for me, Yeah. Maybe there's some subtext building up to it that I missed, but I did feel like it was a bit random, to be honest. I didn't love it, but I never really do love that type of thing. It's a sad ending, I guess. I mean, it's essentially, what if our family builds a little village to live in and isolates ourselves? We've all generations have got traumas and mental disorders, and various things happen, including wars, rapes, crimes, massacres, whatever, incest. And then at the end, there was this prediction about the family coming to ruin, which was kind of personified in this child at the end. It was like, this is what you've done. Your whole family is a disaster. This baby with a pigtail getting devoured by ants is kind of almost what the whole 7 generations of the family deserve. Like, this is what it's come to, And now your town is abandoned and your bloodline is dead, basically. Which is very strong. And it ends, the book kind of comes full circle. I did like the ending, where he's reading the last guy standing is reading the manuscript, which then kind of becomes the start of the novel almost. Like, he's reading about himself then by the end of the book. Like, he joins reality somehow. It's very interestingly done, those last few paragraphs.
Oh, cool.
Like from the narration, so that's cool, I guess. I don't have a lot else to say about it. Like, that's a kind of high level overview. I liked it. I didn't love it. I think that's the most I can say. There's a lot of other characters that come and go, and relatives and wives and things like that. A lot of scenes relating, of course, to the war and the banana massacre and all this kind of stuff that happened. There is a character called Gabriel Marquez who has a little cameo, which is interesting. It doesn't really do a lot, but it's like almost like a Tarantino cameo. Like, what if I just pop myself in one scene or something like that,
That's the cameo you go for. I was thinking of a different one.
Okay, what were you thinking of?
I can't think of his name right now. The one who did Signs. Lady in the Water.
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
You definitely know. Sixth Sense?
Never saw it.
Really? Everyone else knows what I'm talking about.
Probably. Answers on a postcard, pop them, tie them to a carrier pigeon, and it'll get to us.
Why can I not remember his name? He's the most famous bad director of all time. He always puts himself in the movies.
Oh, the guy from like The Room and stuff like that?
No. He's very fun. Bad.
Okay.
Give me a second. I'll look it up because this is gonna annoy me. Brain's not working. M. Night Shyamalan. That's it.
Oh yes, of course. Oh, that's sad.
Yep.
I think I've covered all my notes anyway. There's one or two little things, there's one particular generation where they're trying to persuade the girl. It's this thing I don't like, where it's like, do you want to marry me? And she says, I don't want to marry anyone, but least of all you. Which is harsh, but then the guy's like, cool, guess I've got to somehow win you over and persuade you then. It's like, well, you could also listen to what she says and leave her alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also, like, how it is 50 years ago. I mean, you always hear, like, if you fall off the horse, like, you get back on it. And then, like, there's posts going around, like, Facebook that, like, some parents talk to their kid, and the parent says, like, you know what you need to do if the girl says no, right? And it's like, yeah, try again. It's like, no.
No.
She's giving you your answer, stop. And it's like, that's actually a really good thing to teach children.
Absolutely, yeah.
Try again is good in some situations, but not all.
Not in that. Yeah. There's another little theme in the book. There's a nice quip which comes up twice. The first time it comes up, it basically says people should die not when they're supposed to, but when like it's more beneficial, basically. And then there's they kind of reference it much later, where it's like, well, Ursula was finding it very difficult to die when it would be like most useful to the others, and not just when she's like old or whatever. And there is one character that lives like a ridiculously long time, which is a bit more of the magic realism, I guess, through several generations. But it's fine. It's fun. It's not the worst book I've read by any stretch of the imagination. It's a good book. I give it its yeah. It's just not quite a book for me.
Yeah, it's just above, just like the last one was just below.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure, if this is more your vibe, then you'll absolutely love it. Some things you already know before I even read it. Like, he's fine to do Dumas. It's almost guaranteed, unless it's somehow really bad, that he'll like it. I'm predisposed to like it, and that's the way it is,
And so this one, it's more likely than not that you'll enjoy it more than Dean. So
probably, yeah.
It might be worth giving it a try then.
But yeah, so I promised to do another Latin American book.